And how did a state everyone laughed at pull off the biggest comeback in modern India? Let me tell you a story. Why UP? You might be thinking, UP? Really? But the truth is, UP has a rich history of manufacturing. In Moradabad, families have worked with brass for 400 years. They make statues, lamps, and fancy home pieces. This one city alone sends product worth thousands of crore to Europe and America every single year. In Meerut, 90,000 workers make 60% of all the sports goods in India. Cricket balls, footballs, badminton, rockets. With 1,500 factories, the city exports to more than 100 countries. In Bhadoi, 22 lakh people weave luxury carpets by hand, which take months to finish. These carpets end up in mansion in Germany, the UK and the USA. Agra has 10,000 leather units making shoes, bags and belts. Varanasi creates traditional Banarsi saris that cost thousands. These are all traditional micro-industries in themselves. Skills passed down from parents to children for centuries. For years, these trades stayed local. They gave jobs but never grew big. But then the government saw this potential and an idea was.
欢迎大家来到果果的新闻频道。本期重要看点：印度博主放出狂言，到2030年，印度北方邦将超越台湾和越南，成为世界制造业的新霸主。你没听错，不是孟买，不是班加罗尔，而是一个距离最近港口1400公里，曾经被嘲笑为落后的内陆邦份。这听起来像是天方夜谭，对吧？但是等等，三星已经在那里建厂，成了全球最大的手机工厂，年产1.2亿部手机啊！这个邦就占据了印度40%的手机制造。更疯狂的是，他们准备在2025年10月启用一座超级货运机场，货物48小时内就能飞到全球任何地方，而越南的海运要等好几周。这个拥有2.4亿人口的邦份，比巴西、尼日利亚甚至巴基斯坦的人口都多。正在上演现代印度最大的制造业逆袭故事。曾经这里犯罪猖獗，商人要给黑帮交保护费，外资企业避之不及，但短短几年时间，外资投资暴增4倍，出口翻了一番。他们到底用了什么魔法？为什么三星、LG、小米都疯狂在这里建厂？一个没有海港的内陆邦份，凭什么敢叫板制造芯片的台湾和出口机器的越南？这背后有什么不为人知的秘密？我们接着往下看。
20 years, the world has looked at Asia and seen one giant factory, China.
China is now just as advanced, if not further ahead than centres in the West.
Is building the world's tallest buildings, longest bridges, deepest tunnels.
Chinese manufacturing really become a world leader.
Manufacturing businesses are discreetly relocating, shifting their industrial chains to Southeast Asia and other regions.
Now companies want a China plus one, a second base for their supply chains. And two names always come up, Vietnam and Taiwan. Vietnam built an export machine worth over $400 billion. And Taiwan makes chips worth $165 billion a year. So both sit on the coast, both are plugged into the oceans because that's how manufacturing has always worked. But now a new manufacturing powerhouse is coming up in India. The heart of this boom is not Mumbai or Chennai on the coast. It is not anywhere near the ocean. It is 1,400 kilometers away from any port in a state many call backward, Uttar Pradesh. A state of 240 million people, Samsung's biggest factory in the world's largest carpet industry, and after October 2025, it will potentially have one of India's biggest cargo airports. So how did this happen? And how did a state everyone laughed at pull off the biggest comeback in modern India? Let me tell you a story. Why UP? You might be thinking, UP? Really? But the truth is, UP has a rich history of manufacturing. In Moradabad, families have worked with brass for 400 years. They make statues, lamps, and fancy home pieces. This one city alone sends product worth thousands of crore to Europe and America every single year. In Merit, 90,000 workers make 60% of all the sports goods in India. Cricket balls, footballs, badminton, rockets. With 1,500 factories, the city exports to more than 100 countries. In Bhadoi, 22 lakh people weave luxury carpets by hand, which take months to finish. These carpets end up in mansion in Germany, the UK and the USA. Agra has 10,000 leather units making shoes, bags and belts. Varanasi creates traditional Banarsi saris that cost thousands. These are all traditional micro-industries in themselves. Skills passed down from parents to children for centuries. For years, these trades stayed local. They gave jobs but never grew big. But then the government saw this potential and an idea was born. In 2018, the UP government launched One District, One Product. Each district picked one product it was best at, and the state helped with training, quality checks and exports. And since then, in just 6 years, UP exports have almost doubled from 88,000 crores to about 155,000 crores. That's engineers, laborers, managers, a pre-existing manufacturing ecosystem ready to be used. And their costs are 30% lower than Mumbai or Bangalore. Samsung saw this very early. Back in 1996, they set up a factory in Noida to make TVs. Later, they added phones. In 2018, Samsung opened the world's largest phone factory in Noida. They kept growing for 30 years. Now that one factory makes 120 million phones every single year. Today, Noida is one of the biggest tech manufacturing hubs in India, covering 40% of the entire phone manufacturing in India. LG has its second biggest plant here. And then Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, Lava all have plants in UP. And they don't just assemble, they make parts too. Batteries, display, charging cables, and slowly the tech giants have shown up as well. TCS, Infosys, HCL, Microsoft, Adobe. In fact, Samsung even has 2 research centers here building software for phones used worldwide. But how did this massive upgrade actually happen? Section 2, Roads, Airports and Smart Rules. The biggest problem UP has faced is the geography. It is surrounded by land on all the 4 sides. No sea, no major ports, only roads. The closest big port is in Mumbai, almost 1,400 kilometers away. For decades, this was the main reason UP stayed behind. It could make things, but it could not transport or move them quickly or cheaply. The government decided to fix this. Instead of trying to reach the ocean, they planned to bypass it. They built Jewar Airport, a massive cargo hub made for goods, not passenger. It is set to open in October 2025. This airport will cut time in a way ships can never. A factory in Vietnam sends products by sea and waits for weeks. A factory in Noida will load them on a plane and reach any part of the world in less than 48 hours. But there's a huge problem. Shipping is much cheaper than flying. This is why UP is focusing on light and high value products like smartphones, electronics and traditional artisan products. The other solution is to use what you already have, the land. UP has built an extensive network of expressways that link every major industrial zone. The Yamuna Expressway, the Purvanchal Expressway and the Ganga Expressway have cut travel time in half. On the road now takes only 4. The state also removed the paperwork mess. See, earlier businessmen had to run from offices to office for approvals, but now there's one single window system, one office, one form and 1 week. And these changes had a clear result. UP's business ranking improved from 14th to 2nd in only 3 years. At the same time, the state worked with the central government on a program called Production-Linked Incentives. So the idea is very simple. The more a company produces, the more support it gets from the government. And firms that joined grew almost 80% every single year. All of this has changed the game for UP. But the real question is still open. Can it compete with the global giants like Taiwan and Vietnam? To answer that, we need to go back and see where UP began. How UP changed everything. If UP always had this much potential, why didn't it grow earlier? For many years, it was part of the Vimaru states, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. People believed that these states were holding India back. Especially in UP, crime was the biggest problem. To run a business in UP, you had to pay ransom. You had to deal with gangs and face corruptions at every single step. The few companies that did come lived in fear. There were kidnappings, long strikes, constant threats. All this made foreign investors' confidence really low. Plus, in 2012, the state budget was only 2 lakh crore for 200 million people. So even the government themselves had very little money. All this began to change in March 2017 when Yogi Adityanath became chief minister. He made crime his first target. Real action was taken. Within months, the crime dropped. Businesses no longer paid protection money. The local businesses started to boom and investors started to notice. And the government also worked on the basics. In 3 years, UP business ranking went from 14th to 2nd. The budget grew from 2 lakh crore to 8 lakh crore. The economy rose from 7th largest in India to the 2nd largest. Today, UP makes 9.2% of India's GDP. That's huge. That is more than many countries. From October 2019 to September 2024, the state pulled in around 1.7 billion US dollars in foreign investment, which is about 13,000 crore, which is much higher than the 3,000 crore it got since 2000 to 2017. And the change was not just numbers. People also began to see UP in a new way. They even called it Udyog Pradesh. But the journey is not finished. UP has come far, but it has more distance to cover. Section 4, the problem UP still has. The truth is, UP is mostly an assembly hub right now. We put together parts made by others. Now, that's okay, but it's not enough to beat Taiwan or Vietnam. So, Vietnam started assembly too. But then Samsung, LG and others slowly moved their parts factories there. So now Vietnam makes the tiny components as well, not just the final phone. And UP needs to do the same thing. Instead of just putting phones together, we need to make parts that go inside them. The government launched a huge 59,000 crore rupees plan to help companies make displays, cameras, charging ports, everything inside a gadget. But there's a problem. Making parts is much harder than assembly. It needs super clean factories, better quality control. UP has to prove it can make quality stuff, not just mass produce. And there's the workers problem. UP has millions of workers, but making semiconductors and precision electronic needs different skill set. Workers who can actually read complex manuals, who understand quality rules, and who can work with robots. But I think UP can do it. Let me tell you why. Section 5, how UP will win. UP has something Taiwan and Vietnam can never copy. People, lots of it. 240 million of them. That is more than Brazil, that is more than Nigeria, that is even more than Pakistan. And this enables UP to grow at a scale nobody can imagine. Here's how. The first step is to build full ecosystem, not just single factories. The government has cleared a 417 crore electronic hub next to Jewar Airport. On 206 acres, it will attract 2,500 crores in investments and create 15,000 jobs by 2028. They're building an entire ecosystem. One park makes displays, another makes cameras, the third makes charging cables, all within 50 kilometers of each other. The second step is to use India's giant market as the testing ground. Indians buy 150 million smartphones every single year. So a company in UP doesn't need to defeat Samsung in Korea. It only needs to make screens good enough for Indian phones first. Once they work in India, global markets are easy to scale. And the third step is to get more trade deals. In July 2025, India signed a major agreement with the UK. Now 99% of products made in India can enter Britain without extra taxes. Another deal with EFTA brings 100 billions of investment over 15 years starting October 2025. Vietnam still pays duties on many exports. Taiwan faces limits. India gets a free path into billion-dollar market. The fourth step is to use defense as a base. See, UP has slowly become a defense hub. 7 companies have started work with investments worth 28,809 crore. BrahMos missiles are made in Lucknow. Adani runs a 1,500 crore ammunition plant in Kanpur. These defense plants already have clean rooms, skilled workers, and strict quality standards. The same things phone factories need. So the idea is very simple. Companies can come to UP, use the customer base of 240 million people, improve their products and systems step by step, and then ship them to the world through Asia's fastest cargo airport. And you know what? This is something Taiwan and Vietnam cannot match. Alright, so let's answer the question we started with. Can UP really beat Taiwan? Can it beat Vietnam? The honest answer is UP is playing a different game. See, Vietnam makes products and send them overseas. But UP makes products for the world's fastest growing market right next door in Delhi, in Mumbai, and in Bangalore. And that changes the story. Vietnam must convince foreign buyers to take their goods. UP only need to cross state borders. When Indians buy 150 million smartphones every single year, UP is there. When India potentially becomes the largest car market by 2030, UP is there. When the middle class market grows to 500 million, UP is right there. And that is UP's real strength. It is not just an export hub. It is a manufacturing base inside the biggest growth market in the world. So by 2030, UP will not be the next Vietnam. It will be something new. The first mega manufacturing state that sells half of what it makes at home and exports the other half to the world. And no one has tried this model at this scale before. The biggest manufacturing comeback story in modern India is only beginning. And the truth is, this is just the start.
精彩视频看完了，印度 UP 邦的制造业雄心能否挑战台湾和越南呢？印度北方邦简称 UP 邦，正试图成为世界的制造业的新中心，甚至声称要在2030年超越台湾和越南。从历史底蕴与现实困境来看， UP 邦并非制造业的门外汉，这个拥有 2.4 亿人口的内陆邦份，历史上就有着深厚的制造传统。莫拉达巴德的黄铜工艺已传承了400年，米卢特生产的印度 60% 的体育用品，巴德伊的手工地毯远销欧美豪宅，瓦拉纳西的传统纱丽价值不菲。这些都是代代相传的微型产业，有技术有工人，但一直局限于本地市场，从未真正做大。更致命的是地理劣势， UP 邦四面环路，距离最近的港口孟买有1400公里。在海运主导的全球制造业格局中，这几乎是死穴啊！加上过去治安混乱、腐败严重、基础设施落后，外资企业对 UP 邦避之不及。但是转折点来了，2017年后的大改革，2017年的新政府上台， UP 邦开始了激进的转型啊！首先是整治治安，企业不再需要支付保护费，其次是简化行政流程，推出单一窗口审批系统，最关键的是基础设施投资，修建多条高速公路，将城市间4小时的车程缩至2小时。最大胆的举措来了，它是建设了贾瓦尔货运机场啊，计划于2025年10月启用。这是一个为专门货运设计的超大型机场，目标是用航空运输绕过海运地理劣势，从 UP 邦起飞，货物48小时内可抵达全球任何地方，而越南的海运需要数周。这些改革带来了显著的成效，6年内出口额几乎翻倍，从8800亿卢比增至15.5万亿卢比。营商环境的改变从14名跃升到第2名啊！外资投资从2000年到2017年的3000亿卢比，在2019年到2024年间猛增至 1.3 万亿卢比。然后从三星的示范效应来看，三星是最早看到 UP 邦潜力的企业之一，1996年就在诺伊达设厂，2018年更是建成全球最大的手机工厂，年产 1.2 亿部手机。如今诺伊达已成为印度最大的科技制造中心，占全国手机制造的 40%。 LG、小米、vivo、OPPO 等品牌纷纷跟进，不仅组装整机，还开始生产电池、屏幕、充电线等零部件。然而视频中的乐观论调掩盖不了一些根本性问题啊。首先 UP 邦目前主要还是组装中心，而非制造中心。台湾能生产价值1650亿美元的芯片，越南已经建立起完整的零部件供应链，而 UP 邦还在依赖外来零部件组装。其次，空运成本远高于海运， UP 邦只能专注于轻量高值产品如手机，但在大宗商品制造上无法与沿海地区竞争，人才问题严峻，制造精密电子元件需要高技能工人。而 UP 邦虽然人口众多，但教育水平和技术培训仍是短板，但是也有独特的优势。印度博主最后指出了 UP 邦的真正优势，它不是纯粹的出口基地， 而是服务于印度这个世界增长最快的消费市场。印度每年消费 1.5 亿部智能手机，到2030年可能成为全球最大汽车市场，中产阶级将达到5亿人。UP邦的工厂可以先在本土市场验证产品，再向海外扩张。UP邦的故事确实鼓舞人心，但要在2030年超越台湾和越南，恐怕还是过于乐观。更现实的定位是成为服务印度本土市场的制造中心，同时向周边市场辐射，这已经是一个足够的宏大目标啦。谢谢大家观看，喜欢请点赞、评论加订阅哦，你的支持是我最大的动力。比心，明天见，拜拜，拜拜。